This week marks 30 years since two teenage girls were murdered.
Jennifer Ertman and Elizabeth Pena were attacked and killed in 1993.
In June 1993, the city of Houston, Texas, became the backdrop for a crime so heinous that it would resonate far beyond the streets of the city. What began as a normal summer night, filled with the simple expectations of two teenage girls rushing home to make their curfew, soon transformed into a nightmare that would grip the attention of the nation and reverberate through the corridors of international law. On June 24, 1993, 14-year-old Jennifer Mann and 16-year-old Elizabeth Pena were walking home after a night out with friends, a path they had walked many times before, but this night would be different. They would never make it home. Their shortcut through T.C. Jester Park, a seemingly innocent detour, would lead them directly into the path of a gang initiation that was spiraling dangerously out of control. The group of young men they encountered that night, fueled by alcohol and driven by the dark undercurrents of gang culture, would not let them pass. It wasn't just an unfortunate meeting, it was a tragedy in the making. Among those present was 18-year-old José Ernesto Medellín, a young Mexican national who had spent most of his life in Houston. His presence at the park that night would soon make him infamous, and his story would become the focal point of a legal battle that spanned decades, crossed international borders, and ultimately reached the highest court in the United States. What followed that night in T.C. Jester Park was nothing short of horrific. Jennifer and Elizabeth, innocent and unaware of the danger they were walking into, were subjected to unimaginable brutality. Surrounded by the gang members, they were attacked and silenced in the most merciless way possible. 4 days later, their bodies were discovered near White Oak Bayou, their identities confirmed only through dental records. The discovery sent shockwaves through Houston and beyond. The city was left reeling, the families devastated, and the community left to grapple with a crime so shocking that it could have happened to anyone's daughter. Investigators were quick to act. Within days, Medellín was arrested, and his confession, both written and recorded, provided the grisly details that investigators had hoped to uncover. His nonchalant tone in recounting the events of that night would haunt the case. But what would follow in the legal arena would prove to be just as shocking as the crime itself. José Medellín's story begins not in the chaos of that fateful night, but in his early life in Houston. Born on March 4, 1975, in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, Medellín's family moved to Houston when he was just a child. Like many immigrant families, they were trying to build a better life, free from the poverty and instability that had marked their early years. Medellín's upbringing was modest. There was no wealth, no privilege, and no sense of entitlement. He was just another boy in a crowded neighborhood, blending into the fabric of a community where hope and struggle walked hand in hand. In school, Medellín was an average student. He wasn't a troublemaker, nor was he a model student. Teachers later described him as someone who passed through the school system quietly, never drawing attention to himself. But there was something missing in Medellín's life, a sense of direction. By the time he entered his teenage years, Medellín had begun to drift, searching for something to fill the void. That search for identity and purpose led him down a dangerous path. The streets of Houston. As gang culture grew in the early 1990s, the lure of belonging and power was irresistible to a teenager like Medellín. The black and white gang offered him something he hadn't had before, a sense of purpose, camaraderie, and most importantly, power. But this power came with a cost: drinking, drugs, and dangerous rituals that blurred the lines between right and wrong. Medellín wasn't a leader in the gang. He wasn't the one giving orders, but being close to violence made him just as dangerous as those at the top. As the gang's rituals grew more violent, Medellín became more enmeshed in a lifestyle that he couldn't easily escape. That fateful night at T.C. Jester Park would change everything. What should have been a celebration of Raulville's initiation into the gang became something far more sinister. Jennifer and Elizabeth, on their way home, unknowingly crossed paths with the gang. And what followed was a nightmare that would leave an indelible mark on the city of Houston. Jennifer Mann, at just 14 years old, was the picture of responsibility. She was athletic, dependable, and dedicated to her family. Jennifer was the kind of girl who always followed the rules, and her parents trusted her completely. On that summer night, she had been at a friend's house but kept an eye on the time. Her curfew was strict, and she planned to meet it. Elizabeth Pena, 16, was a different kind of teenager. Outgoing, vibrant, and full of life, Elizabeth had a natural confidence that made her stand out. She was a loyal friend and often looked out for others. Like Jennifer, she was close to her family, and she too was determined to make it home on time. The two girls left their friend's house and decided to take a shortcut through T.C. Jester Park. They had walked this path before, and to them, it was just a quicker way home. But fate had other plans. As the two girls walked through the park, they unknowingly entered a situation that would spiral out of control. The gang, already primed for violence, saw them as easy targets. The group of young men, already drunk and emboldened by the energy of the gang initiation, didn't let the girls pass. The situation shifted from a chance encounter to a confrontation. The girls, who had done nothing wrong, were suddenly surrounded by a group of men whose only intent was to prove their loyalty to the gang. What followed was a brutal, prolonged ordeal. The gang members, emboldened by alcohol and defiance, showed no mercy. Jennifer and Elizabeth were attacked and subjected to unimaginable violence. The details that came out later were harrowing. One of the girls was strangled with a belt, which snapped under the pressure before the killer used a shoelace to finish the job. The other girl was choked with shoelaces, and when that didn't seem enough, even more force was applied to ensure their deaths. The gang members, in a twisted act of cruelty, took personal belongings from the girls, as if to serve as trophies, souvenirs of their senseless violence. When the gang dispersed, leaving the two girls behind, the park fell silent again. It was as if nothing had happened. But the horror lingered, and for the families of Jennifer and Elizabeth, the nightmare was just beginning. For 4 long days, the families of Jennifer and Elizabeth waited for their daughters to return. The police searched for clues, but there were no leads, no explanation. It wasn't until June 28, 1993, that the bodies of the two girls were found. The brutal heat of the Texas summer made identification difficult. It wasn't until dental records were used that the families could confirm what they had feared. Their daughters were gone, taken in the most violent and senseless way imaginable. The news sent shockwaves through Houston. This wasn't just another crime. This was a tragedy that could have happened to anyone's child. The entire city was shaken. In the days that followed, law enforcement officials scrambled to find answers, but it wasn't until a tip from someone within the gang's inner circle that the investigation gained traction. The information pointed directly to the gang members who had been at T.C. Jester Park that night. On June 29, 1993, police arrested 18-year-old José Medellín. When questioned, Medellín didn't deny his involvement. Instead, he confessed. His confession, captured both in written and taped statements, was chilling. The details he provided were disturbingly casual, as if he were recounting an event, not admitting to a crime that had stolen 2 innocent lives. The evidence, combined with the forensic findings, was enough to secure a capital murder conviction. What seemed like a straightforward case soon became anything but. The legal battles that ensued would extend far beyond the Texas courtrooms and even beyond the United States. In 2003, the Mexican government filed a case against the United States at the International Court of Justice, ICJ, arguing that Medellín's rights had been violated under the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. This international treaty mandates that foreign nationals be informed of their right to contact their consulate when arrested. The case was a landmark moment, not only for the families of Jennifer and Elizabeth, but for the relationship between the United States and Mexico. The ICJ ruled in Mexico's favor, declaring that the United States had violated the treaty and ordering a review of Medellín's conviction. This ruling sparked a diplomatic crisis as the United States, particularly Texas, pushed back against the idea that international courts could override state law. In 2008, the U.S. Supreme Court weighed in, ruling 6-3 against Medellín, reaffirming that state sovereignty superseded international law in this case. Despite this legal setback, the pressure on Texas continued to mount. Human rights organizations like Amnesty International decried the execution as a violation of human rights, while Mexico remained steadfast in its opposition. Yet for the families of Jennifer and Elizabeth, the legal battles were secondary. What mattered most was that justice would be served, and on August 5, 2008, that justice was finally delivered. After 15 years of legal wrangling, appeals, and international disputes, José Medellín's story came to a tragic end in Huntsville, Texas. The day of his execution was marked by tension and anticipation, not just within the prison walls, but across the globe. As he was led to the execution chamber, his final moments were watched by the families of Jennifer and Elizabeth, who had waited so long for closure. Medellín's final words were a stark contrast to the brutality of his crime. He expressed regret, but for many, those words couldn't undo the pain he had caused. At 9:57 p.m., the warden pronounced Medellín dead, bringing an end to a chapter that had been marked by pain, injustice, and international controversy. For Jennifer and Elizabeth's families, it was not a moment of triumph, but of release. They had endured years of legal battles, public scrutiny, and painful delays, but finally, the man responsible for their daughters' deaths had been held accountable. The case of José Medellín remains one of the most controversial in American criminal history. It raised difficult questions about the balance between international treaties and state sovereignty, the rights of foreign nationals, and the meaning of justice. For the families of Jennifer and Elizabeth, however, the case was never about politics. It was about two young girls whose lives had been stolen, and the parents who fought tirelessly for justice. Today, their names are etched in the memory of Houston, a reminder of innocence lost and the enduring power of justice.